All right, Connor. Just to start here, great to see you. Appreciate it. I know it's late at night in Spain, and really appreciate you taking this time with us and having our players get to know you a little bit better. So, thanks for doing this. Maybe I can just start with a quick question about what it's been like. Is it 38 days now? You've been in isolation. I know you're in Barcelona. Maybe tell us a bit about that experience.
Something like that, yeah. I think it's 38, 39 days, I guess now 40 because it's 12:45 at night here. But it's been a really big mental strain. I mean, not being allowed to leave the apartment, that's a little different than in Canada. We're actually not allowed to leave the apartment. The only reason you're allowed to leave is for groceries. If you got to go to or from it, you got to have a receipt or a backpack. So it's been very challenging, just in my 2-bedroom apartment, trying to get workouts in, stay in shape, and maybe finish out the season here. So just been mentally grinding through it.
Yeah, you're right. It is a little bit different for us in Canada. We're definitely able to get outside and think of you being a block from the beach and able to see the water. I can imagine how tough that is,
it's
and
a tease.
Trying to stay in shape for your season too. We'll get into that. I'd like to ask you a little bit about what that's like, but maybe first of all, especially for our kids, a lot of them are sort of dreaming of doing what you're doing in basketball, but they're at a really different stage. They're, maybe just getting into high school or just starting to think about post-secondary basketball. I wonder if you can take us a bit backwards to what that was like for you growing up in Victoria. Sort of maybe just right at the beginning, how were you introduced to basketball? Did you take to it right away, or was it like slow burn? How did that go?
I was introduced to basketball, I think, in grade 4 or 5. I kind of always liked it. I didn't really focus on it very, very aggressively until maybe grade 8 or 9. I was kind of a multi-sport athlete, playing a bunch of different ones. And I think that really helped me as well, just moving forward.
What other
I think
sports did you play, Connor?
Everything. I was a soccer player. I played volleyball. That actually taught me how to jump, which was good. I was a golfer. I played a lot of golf when I was younger as well. It's good for the business side of things now. Yeah, I think just being that multi-sport athlete, really just enjoying my younger years was a big key. What was the other part of your question? Sorry.
Well, you know what? I'm going to follow up with one then there too, because we
Perfect.
very much encourage people to be multi-sport athletes. And, I think that there's a lot of clubs that I recognize it from a club perspective. It's a lot easier if you tell people they can only do one sport, because then they have to be committed. And we think it's the right thing to do for athletes to be able to sort of play other sports. Why do you think that was so important for you? Like, was it to help?
Honestly, like we talked about before, I just think the movement patterns. I learned how to right, left jump in volleyball. I learned how to mentally stay engaged for a full 18 rounds of golf, which if you have a tough first couple quarters and you miss your first couple shots, you got to stay locked in. And I guess those are just the biggest things. Kind of mentally, it's just a different sport. It's a different strain on your body and your system. And I think that for me has really helped, and as well, it's good for in the off season kind of for me to get back to those things and kind of forget about basketball, but still be competitive at the same time.
Cool. I guess my next part of the question, and it kind of leads into the next one, is that like, when did you first start sort of noticing that you were having quite a bit of success and like starting to think maybe about playing after high school?
For sure. I was actually thinking about that the other night. I remember my mom came into the hotel room. We were in Vancouver. I can't remember why we were there. I think we were there for the BC provincials when I was really young. I was in grade 8 or 9, and we just went over to watch them. And my mom said to me, Connor, like, it's getting to the point here where you're going to have to pick one sport. Like, we don't have enough money to pay for all this, especially the next level. And I kind of had no idea what I wanted to do. And my mom was like, Connor, like, you're really good at basketball. Like, maybe you should try that out. And ever since that day, it's been like 100% locked. I don't think I've ever told anybody that story before. It's kind of been like 100% locked into basketball. Everything else mattered, obviously. But at that point, I really liked it. I liked the sport. Obviously, in my grade 8, 9, and 10 years at Mount Doug in Victoria, I was kind of more of just a shooter guy. My dad taught me how to shoot at a young age. So that was my best attribute, I'd say. I was probably around maybe 6 feet, which is still tall by kid standards in grade 9. But But I think by the end of my grade 10 year, I really realized that I'm growing a little bit. And if I work on the rest of my body in the weight room and kind of do that, I think I'll have a chance to play post-secondary, hopefully in the CIS. And then in my grade 11 year, I was 6'5" or 6'4". And then my grade 12 year, I ended up 6'7". So that growth spurt was huge for me. And looking back at it, I was kind of tunnel vision towards it was all the hard work and everything. I was very blessed athletically, and it was growing to be a 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" now. It's obviously a skill that you can't teach, and I noticed this as well. I'm very grateful for my genes. However, I think I've also worked very, very hard. I enrolled in a grade 11 strength training class back when I was in high school. And that really taught me the ins and outs of the weight room and how important that was. And moving forward, I played basketball through the summer, all through the year, and it was just constant basketball at all times. And I'd work out on my own, and I'd work out after school. I'd work out before school. So these things were great for me, kind of developing into the player that I am today.
And do you think you knew right from an early age what to work on, or because you talked about your dad teaching you how to shoot and stuff, or do you think it was more just that you were there with the time with the basketball in your hand, or did you have a pretty good plan?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. I had no idea what to work on. I won't lie to you. I had absolutely no idea. As a young kid, I had no idea. Luckily, my dad was my coach, so we have a very at the time strained relationship when it came to basketball, and I couldn't ever hear a piece of advice from him just because I don't know what it was. It was just a mental block I had. I never wanted to hear it from him. I even told him, I was like, Dad, I don't know what it is. I just can't take advice from you in a game. So you got to tell the other coaches to tell me, because it's just, for me, I'm sorry. And honestly, looking back at it, I wish that I had been more mature in the moment. I don't know what it was, but it was just being a young kid. But everything he did say to me, it did get through. I just didn't kind of.
So he knew what he was talking about. You just
exactly,
you weren't ready to see
he knew what he was talking about. I just didn't want to hear it from him. I don't know what it was. It was a weird thing.
Well, I have it with my daughter too. My
yeah.
kids. It's not easy because you're, as a parent, you're constantly there, and you're always
exactly. Yeah, it's like, you're my dad. You're not my coach.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he would suggest little things here and there, and I'd get upset about it and say, I do that. And then I would go to the gym and kind of just work on those things more. So the next time he said this, I'd be better at it, and I don't think I've ever told him really that, but yeah, maybe I should have that conversation with him.
It sounds like you need a hug. It sounds like you need a hug from your mom and dad. Mom told you to focus, get your focus here, Conor.
Academically, yeah. For sure. Yeah, no, It was great. I think another thing I had too was I had a really good group of friends that really liked basketball as well. And that was big for me. We would go to the gym kind of every day and play one-on-one and everything. So this was huge for me as well. That's another thing.
Well, just so you know, with especially during this COVID time, usually we're with a lot of our players who will be listening to this interview, and we're with them 3-4 times a week. We get in the weight room with Saltis there with Sean, and we get we're on the court at least 3 times a week together. And now obviously we can't be, but it's one of the things, and it's great actually hearing from you, I think, for these guys, because most of them are working out quite a bit. We've got sort of this XPS training app where we send them 4 workouts a week that they can basically get that kind of guidance. It sounds like you got somewhat from your dad and everything, because it is obviously the most important thing is to be there with the ball in your hands and work hard. But if you're working on the right things, all that much better. It's just going to shorten the learning curve there. So, I think listening to someone like you and how important that was for your development, obviously your, like you said, your genes and some of your athletic things that abilities you were blessed with took you from maybe being a really top high school player or university to national team and beyond, which we'll talk about coming up into. But without that, it doesn't matter what what athletic ability you have. If you didn't put that work in,
for sure,
you probably wouldn't have gotten there, would you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing too is at a young age, if you're not committed to it doesn't matter the training apps, everything your coaches do for you, doesn't matter. If you're not committed and you don't want it, then it's not going to happen.
True. Yeah, very true. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about, eventually, then you got to making that decision, and was it an easy decision going to UBC, or was there a lot of sort of angst and like looking at different opportunities, or how did that come about?
Yeah, that was one of the tougher decisions I've had. I thought I mean, at the time in my career, obviously I've had a couple of tough ones recently, and I will in the future. I'm hoping at least. But yeah, the biggest thing for me when I was coming out of university or college, or what was it, high school? Well, that was a long time ago. Is I wanted to move away. Both of my parents had moved away for high school, for university, and they always said it did wonders for their maturity and their development, and just like the sense of mom and dad aren't there to cook your food or do your laundry if you forgot to do it. And I think for me this was huge. Moving away for school, this was the biggest thing for me. It wasn't anything really against UVic. It wasn't anything against any other team, but I found that UBC was that top level team. At the time, they had some of the best players in the country on their team. Like all the top provincial players at the time had gone to
Who were the
UBC.
guys
Like,
you were looking at that time? Do you remember that you were?
it was David Wagner was there.
Coach Wagner. Yes.
Yeah, Nakai Lukin was there. He came in with Dave, and Malcolm Williams. Actually, I think he plays in the CFL now. But this was kind of their and Mike Lewandowski was there as well. So all these guys I'd grown up and I played on the provincial team here and there. But I'd always kind of looked up to those guys, and that's where they all went to UBC. So I was like, wow, that must be a really good university if they're all going there. So part of me was kind of like, do you think I'll be able to crack a roster in the first couple of years? And I finally just said, I'm just going to bet on myself, and I'm going to go to UBC. And I went there.
Was that a concern of yours, going to a really good school that like, oh man, I won't get the shot because I'm behind Wags or some of these other guys? Was that a bit of your concern?
I mean, it was, yeah. But I knew one of the benefits I had growing up actually was my parents billeted a student athlete that went to Camosun almost every year. And they would be in their first year. So I got to see kind of what a freshman rookie on a basketball team went through, and how frustrating and hard that was. And luckily enough, I had that. So I had the maturity when I was making this decision that it was a 5-year decision. It wasn't just a one, I'm going to go there, and if I'm not playing in my first year, I'll be upset. It was a 4 or 5 year decision for me. And I think just having that in my house when I was growing up really helped me make that decision, and really helped me pick the best of the best and bet on myself and work as hard as I could to get to where I am today.
I think that's really interesting, Conor, you saying that, because, being exposed to that, I think a lot of people don't see it. And it amazes me the number of people coming out of BC, and we can look at so many examples of your peers, guys you could look at who weren't ready for that. And they're the number of guys who have lasted 2 months at a place, 3 months, 4 months. I mean, it's incredible. And I think that a lot of people, when you're in high school, it's pretty easy to think, well, the challenge is making the team. And obviously if you don't make the team, it's over at that point, but there's a lot of challenges beyond that, and being mentally prepared for the grind and that journey. It sounds like you were, and it's
for sure. Yeah.
You were able to have that long-term vision.
Yeah, it was great. I had a good 5th year too. And Doug Plum, he's a crazy person. Like, I absolutely love him. He works like an absolute madman. And I think every single day that year, I think we were in the gym an hour and a half before practice started. We played ones. There was this one drill we did in my first year at UBC that it was this closeout drill, and I couldn't guard anybody. Like, I was just this slow white kid, and I'd always been the best player on the team, and I came here and I was just getting torched. So Doug kind of took me under his wing, and we did this. He made me do closeouts on him in the morning sometimes. And other days we would just shoot, but that really helped me as well. And to this day, Doug has helped me out a lot. He's a great relationship that I have with him.
Good. Awesome. So then maybe just, just so we can get, you've got so many interesting stories from Europe. I don't want to spend too long on UBC, but would love to hear a little bit. You were there for 6 years because you had one redshirt year when you broke your navicular. Same bone. Coincidentally, I broke my. We went to nationals. I did it a week before we went to the nationals, so that was a tough one at UBC. So maybe there's something about the War Memorial floor there that's tough.
No.
And yeah, but you got 6 years there, and you ended up, as we said in the introduction there, you ended up 2 years in a row as a first team All Canadian, 2 years in a row as Canada West MVP. I mean, those are unbelievable sort of achievements, tough to do once, let alone your final 2 years. Obviously that probably took a couple years to get to. Maybe just run us through the recap of how that went.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my first year was just kind of getting there, and I was just a rookie, wide-eyed, didn't really know what to expect, and was just going with everything. I was a pretty innocent person, and I really didn't know what to expect. So I was kind of just all out 100% at all times. And then my second year, obviously, like we talked about, I think I made a pretty good impact in my first year. I did what I had to do to help the team win. I was more of just kind of a spot-up shooter in the corner. We knew the stars. We all knew our role on the team, and I really accepted that. That helped me in my first year. And then going into my second year, I really wanted to explode and have a better year. Unfortunately, I broke my foot, like we talked about. Into my third year there, I kind of had some growing pains, not physically, but kind of mentally. It was a tough year for me, where it's kind of that middle ground in a tenure at a university where you're kind of not the new guy and you're not the veteran star on the team yet. You're kind of that in between. If you do something wrong, it's kind of like, why isn't he developing? And if you do something like really right, then they're like, wow, this guy's going to be good in the future. So that was kind of hard for me to get through that kind of in my third and fourth years.
I remember those times, Conor. I remember talking to you a little bit about it. And,
yeah, it was tough.
It's hard because you don't see the overall picture. You're just in that moment. And I remember
Exactly.
that frustration, knowing that, hey, good things are going to come to you, but you needed that. It's hard to see in the moment when you're there.
For sure, yeah. And I think it's all credit to the people that I had around me that I got through it. And ultimately, I made a pretty big decision there, just to kind of, I had no excuses. Like, I had everything around me. I had a gym that I had a key to because I worked at it. I had a weight room with a world-class trainer and Joe out there at UBC, unreal. So I had the two best things that you need to be a good basketball player: the weight room and the gym. So I had literally everything set up. So I made a decision. I stayed in Vancouver every summer. I worked hard, and I kind of just grew into this player, and it came with the confidence. The weight room may not affect kind of your absolute basketball game, but it's gonna help your kind of your positioning on the floor and how you're gonna have more confidence just from your strength, and you'll be able to defend better. That's where I saw the biggest increase, was just in my defense and physicality wise. Whereas you're battling a guy like Tommy Nixon or Dave every day, like, you're going to get more strong no matter what. But that weight room kind of takes you to the next level. And then, so yeah, I kind of went through that in-between year period. And then I got into my last years there, and I was fortunate enough to be in a good situation, great teammates. And yeah, it was a very good couple years individually. And team-wise, we should have been a little bit better, but we had some bad breaks kind of down the stretch of some of those years, and it definitely hurts me a little bit to talk about.
Classic story of UBC. I hear you. Yeah. My fourth and fifth year, we were ranked top team in the country for about half of that, and didn't get it done. Didn't get the national championship.
Yeah.
Guys, you were in a pretty similar situation, and a different coach, different time, but a lot of the same story.
Sure.
And,
it was tough.
Interesting that you had so much success your last couple of years at UBC. You played on the FISU team that went to Taiwan. You had games against Purdue that I know were pretty incredible. Any of you guys want, you can Google those on, I think YouTube link's still up for those. Maybe we can share those, Conor. But, and kind of sort of catapulted you to kind of that next level in some ways, like big enough games that, certainly people taking notice. I know you played on the Commonwealth Games team that, and, you guys got all the way to the finals against Australia as a bunch of students playing in sort of Commonwealth Games where you're playing against pros and some of the best guys in Australia. Those are big time sort of opportunities and big time accolades with the All Canadian. Were you ever tempted at all to go down to the States, look at the NCAA route, or was it, hey, you were committed to your time at UBC, you were kind of a later developer, that was never the path for you? What did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I won't sit here and lie to you. I definitely did. At one point during my UBC career, I kind of thought maybe maybe I should look kind of down south and go that route. I had a pretty long summer just thinking about that whole thing, and I just decided that I made a pretty big decision where I just kind of figured if I'm going to play good and work hard enough and figure it out, somebody's going to take notice, and I think I can hopefully make it kind of to a good league in Europe. And if I keep playing good enough and I build my brand, or I kind of what am I looking for? My body of work will speak for itself. I think that's the biggest thing that I can say is just if you play well and you work hard and you people are going to notice you. If you have the attributes and you have the accolades, you have the mindset, I think people are going to notice you. And I think that's an important thing. I kind of wanted to stay at UBC and kind of just I don't know, be a big fish in a small pond. Maybe that's what we could say. I'm going to plug my computer in because it's going to die here real quick.
And do you think, Conor, I'll ask you a question as you're getting your plug here. Do you think it was the right, like, was it a no-brainer that was the right decision? Or do you ever look back and go, oh, hey, I wonder what if I did something else, or was that clearly the right decision for you?
I mean, yeah, you can always look back at it and say shoulda, coulda, woulda. But I mean, if I were to go back 5 years, 4 years, whatever it may be, where I was having that summer, I think for sure, if I knew this was the outcome, I would have made the same decision.
I think that's really important to know, though, because I think, Conor, a lot of people see that allure of the States and they think, hey, I need to do that if I want to get to, my goals in basketball. And you've been able to, like, I think you've been really patient. You've sort of been able to look at the big picture, and because of it, you had a fantastic university career, where you really accomplished something. And we'll get into that next, but you're getting opportunities with it at the national team level. You're getting opportunities to make not just a good living playing basketball through a totally different route. And I think a lot of people don't sort of think of that or see that because just the way we are as Canadians, we always look over the border and think, oh, that's the best part. It's interesting to see you.
I don't think it's, for me, I think it's all about opportunity. Honestly, there's a lot of guys that can go down south and be the 10th man on a Division I team and say they played Division I basketball and not have much of a career afterwards. But if you're going to stay in Canada and have the opportunity, I think the way the game is growing in Canada and kind of all the success that Canadians are having, I think people are going to start looking, and Canadian basketball is just going to get bigger and bigger. And like I said, the body of work is going to speak for itself. So I think you really got to consider everything. You can't have tunnel vision when it comes to these big decisions in your life, because if you have tunnel vision, you're not going to make the right decision.
Yeah. No, for sure. All right. Well, let's move on to that next stage then. I know after you graduated there, you had your Commonwealth Games team. I know you went to New Zealand for a short period of time, 3 months right after you graduated, and then very shortly after that, you signed a contract and went to Peña Club just in Barcelona here, where you're talking to us today. And signed with them. I guess that was almost 2 years ago now. This is the end of your contract. So maybe just tell us a little bit about that period of time, how that sort of unfolded.
After my university career, kind of.
Yeah, you finished your 5th year. What was it? The end of 2000?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I went down to New Zealand after the Commonwealth Games. I had some interest kind of from a coach just in New Zealand. He wanted to bring me over for 3 months. And I figured, why not? I had nothing else to do in Vancouver in the summer. So I kind of sacrificed my summer, which absolutely I would have done again. We ended up winning the championship down there, which was really fun. I made some really good friends down there. Got paid a little bit of money. And then from there, I came back to Vancouver for 2 weeks, and then I flew out to Barcelona, or to Badalona, I should say. If the Barcelona or the Peña fans heard me say that, they would be very happy. So Badalona.
Now, for anyone who doesn't know, the ACB, which is the top league in Spain, is it's definitely the second best league in the world, the best league in Europe, some of the biggest money, some of the best players, stadiums, everything. Really not very typical for some from U sport athlete to walk onto a team and get in that situation right away. tell us about how that happened and why it was able to happen so quickly for you.
Yeah, it was honestly, I think the ACB takes maybe 2-3 rookies straight out of university every year. So
And
it
when you
was a
say
pretty big.
university, mostly NCAA division.
Yeah, I mean like Purdue, Kentucky, and North Carolina, all these big ones. So the hardest part kind of is there's different levels of imports over here, and I won't really get into that because you can talk about that all night. But you're usually finding your Americans or in the ACB at least, are going to be kind of ex-NBA guys, or they're kind of on the fringe of the NBA, or they're. Last year we had one guy that was straight out of Purdue. His name was Dakota Mathias. And actually, funny enough, one of the reasons that I ended up getting the job in Badalona last year was due to the game that I had with the Canadian national team at the FISU games. We went down to Indiana to have our training camp in Purdue, because the Purdue went as the American team, and we played against them. And I had a pretty good game against them. So that was available on YouTube for everybody to look at. So I sent that link to my agent, and he kind of started shopping me around, and Penny liked what they saw. So they fired an offer at me, and I guess they had Dakota as well. So we had played against each other before we teamed up over here. So that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And so that really helped kind of get you, they were able to see you against Purdue we did talk about how you've been able to have these opportunities out of youth sport. I think in full disclosure, probably one of the challenges is a lot of teams in Europe, they have a hard time knowing what that means when UBC plays UVic and they see that game on TV. It's a little easier for them to see when UBC or when Canada plays Purdue, just at what level to place you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure.
So
that's, I mean, that goes back to your previous question too, about kind of the American and States thing. I had two great opportunities with Kevin Jordan White. We played on the national team 2 times. Maybe Jordan only once, but Kev was there at the Commonwealth Games and the FISU Games. So I wouldn't have had either of those opportunities if I had gone south to America, because I wouldn't have been allowed to play on the team.
And that's because the FISU team is only made up of youth sport. It no longer includes NCAA athletes.
At this time, yeah. They change it kind of year FISU game to FISU game, but this year it was just youth sport guys.
It's actually a great point to bring up, Connors. I think a lot of people don't realize that. It used to not be that student games team. FISU games used to include any student athletes, but I believe in recent years.
It has been the last couple, I think, 2 or 3 of them.
And I think that's part of the pathway going forward. My understanding is really wanting to encourage, Canadian basketball, so that if guys who do stay, that team is entirely made up of people from youth sport, and kind of gives them an opportunity for some of that exposure.
For sure.
So,
and they've had some success with those teams too. I mean, the final in the Commonwealth Games, they had a really good FISU team this past summer in Italy as well. I think they might have underachieved a little bit, but they were a favorite definitely in it. There's some really good guys on their team. Really, really talented. So I think I'm hoping for the best of that, and I hope they continue to do that, because it's really good for youth sports.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think some of the success Carleton's had over the last a couple decades now, playing against top Division 1 schools, helps open some people's eyes to what the level. Yeah. Okay. Well, then maybe now it kind of brings us up to the present. You're here in Barcelona, and you're now near the end of your second year. Unfortunately, you were hoping to be sort of playing right now instead of doing home workouts. But I know you had a really exciting first year there, and got obviously everything brand new language, new culture, being a professional instead of university student. What really stuck out for you? Maybe what was the hardest part of that adaptation?
The lifestyle, honestly, just coming over here. A lot of people think, he's going over to play in Europe. He's living the dream. He's playing professional basketball for a living. It's a challenge. You give a lot of things up. I was talking to my parents about it when they were here visiting at Christmas time, and you give up not a lot of the relationships with your friends, but a lot of memories. I had to miss multiple weddings since I've been over here. Big milestones in people's life that I'm not able to be there for. I'm missing my parents. They're getting a little bit older, and I'm missing them. I mean, I'm over here 8 months of the year, so I'm only home for 3 if I'm lucky, 3 months if I'm lucky. So you give up a lot of a lot to be over here. And once you're over here, you kind of you wake up, and the time change for me in Barcelona to Vancouver at least is 9 hours. So it's not until 5 o'clock of pretty much every day that my friends in Canada are waking up. So it's not just hop on FaceTime, you'll be fine. No, because they're sleeping. They're not even awake. So that part of it's a little challenging. So you definitely have to learn how to be alone. I mean, it would help if you could bring a significant other over, but that's asking a lot from them as well. I mean, they would have to give up almost everything in Canada and to come over here and live with me and kind of be in a foreign country where they don't speak the language either. They don't have any friends here. That can be a big time strain on a relationship, or even it could be very tough. So those are some of the challenges for sure. Obviously, it has its pros as well, which kind of come to light, and everybody knows about the pros, but not a lot of people know kind of about the other side of things. And I'm not complaining by any means. I'm just kind of educating a little bit more.
Well, if anyone can relate, Connor, it's me. I went over at 22 and I didn't come back until I was in my early 30s. And, I got one Christmas at home, and that's because I broke my leg in December. Missed the rest, and I missed a lot of weddings. Even though you do have the summer off, you're sort of certainly, it's only maybe 4 or 5 weeks in the summer a lot of times if you're busy with things. So it's certainly, there's a sacrifice I think a lot of people don't understand, but I think there's also, and I got already a chance enough to talk to you to know you're really loving pushing yourself to your limits. And I think if you're anyone who's made it to that level, you really enjoy that. And as much as you get a chance to do that at the university level, you get even more overseas, where you can look at your diet, you can look at your, all of your physical training, you can look at your recovery, you can look at the skill work you're doing, the physical work you're putting in, game tape, because you have the time. And it sounds like you're doing that and enjoying it as well.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you really got to love basketball to make it over here. And you can, I mean, I'm in a great city right now. I live 10 minutes outside of Barcelona. So you could be in Russia, you could be in Turkey, you could be in, I mean, you played over here, you know how it is. So I was very fortunate to get in a good situation. My first year I was on a winning team. I had really good teammates, which was great, made the transition earlier. And I met a really good friend as well, in Luke Herringody, he played in the NBA a little bit, went to Notre Dame. And he was on the older side of things. So he was really a good mentor for me in my first year. So I fell into a great situation. And I think I kind of talked it into fruition as well. Obviously things can always be better. Things can always be worse, but I think with the card that I was dealt, I think I made kind of the most of it. And I think, I've done that, enough in my life kind of to be here. So.
It's, and you're just starting the story. I think you've got a lot of exciting times to come there.
Let's hope so.
You told me a story earlier. I just want to maybe you touch on. There's so much. I mean, honestly, Connor has done over the last couple of years. It's pretty incredible. And it's been a constant run. And part of that sacrifice he's talking about, going from from Vancouver to New Zealand, back to Vancouver to Europe, but then with your stints with the national team, I know you've had every time you guys get a little bit of a break, flying off to China, flying off to South America, Venezuela, Brazil, some, a ton of highlights there. But maybe just a quick story. I know your first year there, you guys did really well as a team, and you got to the King's Cup and got to sort of play in Madrid against Madrid. Maybe just if you could just share a little bit of that story, what that meant, because I think, for all the sacrifice, I think that's some of the excitement and the sort of the reward for it. And I think that would be kind of neat to share with the kids.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, long story short, It basically the King's Cup is a mid-season playoff that most of the European leagues do, and the Spanish one is more heavily followed, I think, than some of the other ones, just because there are 4 EuroLeague teams, 3 Euro Cup teams. There's a lot of European competing teams in the league, and it just shows that the league is very good. So there's a lot of eyes on it. And this King's Cup last year, it was great. It was honestly every basketball dream that you can have as a young kid growing up, wanting to to play basketball at the highest level. It was crazy. Like, we played against EuroLeague team Baskonia. We upset them in the first game. One of our starting point guard, who now plays at Real Madrid, had an absolute crazy game. One of the craziest games of basketball that I've ever seen. Personally, I had a solid game in the first game. But for me, I had my best game, I'd say, was in the semifinal the next night. And I mean, there was 16,000 people probably at this game. It was loud. Madrid's the home team. It was in Real Madrid.
How did those fans compare to? I mean, we've most of us have experienced 16,000 people at Rogers Arena for a Canucks game. Is it different? Is it very similar? Or?
Yeah, it's different. I would classify European Spanish people to be a lot more emotional, I'd say, than I think emotional is the right word.
Yeah.
So they're waving flags the entire game. They're chanting the entire game. I played in one game last year where there was 5,000 people in the arena, and they were doing the Iceland soccer clap, and I couldn't hear myself, and we couldn't hear our trainers in warm up. We ended up winning the game kind of controversially, and they were punching the tunnel for us, trying to get, like, we were walking like this, trying to get through the tunnel. So it was absolutely, we got taken out in a police escort.
One thing you can be thankful for, I think, Connor, is the fact that they're not allowed to smoke. I assume that they're not smoking anymore, because there used to be just so much smoking in the stands.
Yeah, I'm sure you went through that a little more than I did.
Oh, and getting lighters, throwing things at the athletes and stuff. Like, there's a passion there for sure.
Yeah, I'd say in Spain it's a little bit more tame. They're not throwing stuff too much at us, which is good. But
wait till I do know. To Greece,
yeah, no, I know in the Adriatic League, which is another league in Europe, there was one final last year. They were throwing pennies at the players. They were like, people in the front were spitting on them. Like, yeah, it took them an hour and a half to start the game, because my fans were just going so crazy. If any of the kids really want to see like a European true like game, go type in like Panathinaikos versus Olympiacos, which is the two Greek teams, and that is just absolutely insanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, to get back to the story, basically this game in Madrid was full, about 16,000 of these fans were respectful. It was a great atmosphere. It was very loud. We ended up losing the game, but it was kind of like the fans were running after our bus after the game. It was a very cool experience. Probably to this day, that and the World Cup in China were probably the two best basketball experiences that I've had throughout my time.
Awesome. Well, maybe I know I've taken a lot of your time here, so maybe just wrap up with that. Just what that's meant, the opportunity to play for Canada. I know it's been several times now, starting with the student games team, but also playing with the senior team, playing with Nick Nurse, and playing for Coach Nick Nurse, and playing with Corey Joseph, Kem Burke, some of these NBA, names that a lot of people will be familiar with. I know it. You've gotten several opportunities to play with him. What's that meant to you, and what's sort of your favorite highlight?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. Going into it, he's just another coach. You don't look at him like he's Nick Nurse. He's just a coach. I don't know. That's the mentality that I went over with, and that's kind of still the mentality that I have. I understand that he won a championship with the Toronto Raptors there, but I mean, he's just a regular guy. He's a good coach, and I love playing for him. It was great. Being around the NBA guys was good as well. Kind of picked their brains about the NBA and stuff like that was cool to see. But at the same time too, like you got to have your confidence going in there. If you're going in there and you're putting all these guys on a pedestal and you're kind of like, oh, look at this guy, he does this, he plays there, he does this, and Nick Nurse is the coach of this team, and he just if you're doing this, then you're in trouble. You gotta go in there with the utmost confidence, and at the same time respect for them as well. Just to compete and kind of play for your time. And yeah, it was great at the World Cup, and I mean, playing for Canada is just unreal as well. If you were to tell me when I was 15, 16 years old that I would have traveled to this many countries and played for the national team and in this amount of games by this age, I would have thought that I couldn't wait to grow up. It's been awesome so far. So I hope to keep that going. And I'm very humbled by the opportunities that I've had. And I also understand that it doesn't happen to everybody. But I also, at the same time, I've worked very hard to get here. And I plan to keep working hard. And I hope to continue kind of on this trajectory, hopefully north, positively, if you know what I mean.
No, absolutely. I got two final questions for you, just to follow up on that one. What is it you need to work on most to get to the next level of where you want to get to?
For sure. I think the quick answer to that question would be, I got two. There's two things I really want to focus on. First and foremost would be just rebounding. I think that'll really bring me to the next level. If I can get 3, 4, 5 more rebounds a game and just assert my dominance in that way. It's not only going to help me offensively and defensively, kind of just more touches on the ball and everything. But I mean, numbers wise, it's going to help me as well. And I'd say the second attribute that I'd like to work on a little bit is just the post game. One of the problems that I haven't had as much opportunity kind of to post up on the team that I'm on right now, because my shooting is my biggest skill, and we kind of use that a little bit more. But I think moving forward, it's something that I'd really like to add and not add it. I have it already. I just kind of want to expose it a little bit better.
Should we get Coach Wags to put in a few reps with you?
Absolutely. I need some righty hooks out of Dave for sure.
He makes the most of what he's got, man. He's slippery. You could.
Man, I tell you one thing about Dave. He is one of the most talented basketball players that I played with. Just with his, I mean, he wasn't very athletic. He'll be the first one to tell you that. But him being a one-trick pony and having a righty hook, he had one like NBA move, NBA right hand.
Yeah.
And he could throw that up over top of anybody. And if you give that guy the ball on the right block and he can go to the middle with his right hand, he's unstoppable.
Well, and his ability to pass out there too. I find it so frustrating playing against him, because he knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and you know what he wants.
Very
to do.
smart basketball player.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It's fun playing.
I need some David Wagner workouts this summer. I think I'm coming to split second, Dave. Watch out.
There you go. Well, Dave's putting them lots together for these guys right here, and he's actually just worked on last week an advanced post workout. So maybe we can share that with you, Conor.
I could use some moves.
yeah, exactly. His counters to it. And then the last question I had for you was, if you could give some advice to a 15-year-old Conor, to maximize basketball development and everything, what would you say right now?
Jeez, this is a loaded question.
Nice, easy one.
Yeah, really. I really firmly believe that I've worked very hard up to this point. I don't have any regrets. That being said, if I'm going to truthfully answer that question, it's going to sound very cliche. At times I was a little bit hard-headed and tunnel visioned, and I wasn't as open to maybe suggestions from, at times, my father, my high school coach, as I should have been. However, that being said, I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think just kind of being open and accepting new things, and honestly just being able to take criticism. As a young kid, and you hear something that you don't like, it's hard to be like, okay, coach, yeah, I'd really like to develop that and work on that this summer, but it's something, looking back at it, I think if I had done that a little bit better, I don't know if I'd be better or worse today, but I think that's what I would give myself. That's the one piece of advice I'd give myself. And there's many others, but that's the biggest one, I think.
All right. Well, I have to just put this on record that I did not pay Conor to say that. Be more coachable. I did not prepare him for that.
For sure, no.
Surprise answer. But a perfect way to end this interview, as we're talking to so many players who, they're going through that, and it's a struggle. I know for everybody, all of us, it's a struggle to listen.
I think it's just growing up. It's a thing. Like, I'm not saying I was hard-headed and I wasn't I was very coachable. It's just at times I struggled to take criticism, and I would internalize it, do what I want with it. But yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, as a coach who's on the other side of it, and that's the other thing, Conor, I know you've coached for us lots over the years. I hope, I hope you're really successful and you're playing for so long that this is a decade or more off, but one day you'll come back and coach. And I think you'll find that, as a coach, you really do care, and you really do want to try and get that knowledge through to kids. But until there's that openness and that willingness to learn, it's really hard to have that deep learning you need to get to that next level where you're at. And so I think
it's a challenge on both sides, for sure. 100%. I think it's just a part of growing up, man. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed this time, and I'm sure everybody listening to will as well, and sort of eagerly watch, for the next whether it's appearance with Canada or hopefully coming back quite soon here and finishing off the league. I know
So, yeah.
you're hoping you're in Spain for a bit more because they may extend the season a little bit. So fingers crossed for that.
Whatever happens, happens. It's all good. I'm out here. I'm all set up.
Good. Well, and if that whether that happens or not, I'm sure you'll be back here in Vancouver a little bit in the summer. So it'll be great to do out training with us. Maybe a little bit, maybe do the mentorship program and or any coaching around. Or is it mostly Victoria you'd be in, or is it? You think of Vancouver?
Yeah, I'm gonna be in Victoria for the first 2, depending on what time I come home after the quarantine or whatever. But my plan is to move to Vancouver. I'm going to be working out with Doug in Port Coquitlam there. But I'm always looking for gym time, so I'll probably definitely come get a couple shots up, maybe a split second. But yeah, maybe I'll come work out with Dave too. Maybe he can teach me a thing or two. Honestly, I would love to play post 1-on-1 against Dave because he teaches me things. Like he's a good guy. He does still to this day. I've always been trying to get that righty hook out of him, but it's just so hard for him to vocalize it, you know.
That sounds like maybe a good session. I'd like to go see that one, a little 1-on-1 battle, Conor and Dave in the post from the right block. We got to go from the.
Yeah, he's beating me, man, for sure.
All right, well, good to talk to you, Conor. Get some sleep, and we'll see you in the back here.
All righty, sounds good. See you guys later.
All right, thanks, man.